Nothing happened. No steps were blocked. No hand rose to stop them. They were not delayed. They were not redirected. No reason appeared to interrupt their movement. So this movement looked as if it had passed without trouble. At this time, people did not bother to ask. Not because they trusted, but because asking was unnecessary. Familiar passages did not hold the gaze for long. Eyes moved on. Before questions could form, they moved. At the same time, chose the same direction, and kept the same silence. There was no need to adjust their pace, no need to signal each other, no need to prepare words. Words were not needed. No confirmation was required. From the outside, the conditions looked sufficient. Everything appeared to be in order. But from that moment, they were no longer under the same protection. Nothing announced this change. No rule shifted. No boundary was marked. Yet the condition was already different. Ellen was already inside protection. She did not step forward. She did not claim space. She simply remained where questions did not reach. She did not speak, but her silence stopped questions before they arrived. People felt discomfort. They noticed it. They sensed something uneven, but they did not cross the line. They chose not to ask. They chose not to confirm. William remained outside. He did not fall behind. He did not separate himself. He stayed where attention could still gather. He did not speak either, but his silence had to be checked first. His silence did not stop questions. It delayed them. It absorbed them before they became visible. Permission made movement possible, but it did not protect existence. Movement was allowed. Presence was not secured. So nothing happened. No interruption. No confrontation. No incident. And yet, the fact that nothing happened had already placed them in different positions. They were still moving together, but they were no longer in the same place. Ellen knew that this protection did not begin with a declaration. No one said it was fine. No one checked permission. Nothing was officially given. People simply chose not to cross the line. That choice did not look like an agreement. It did not look like a rule. It was not a duty, and it was not a request. That was why it could not be refused. It could not be said to have been given, and it could not be said to have been withheld. At this time, explanations were not needed. The condition in which explanations were unnecessary had already been formed. Everyone knew that familiar passages were not followed by confirmation. The moment confirmation appeared, movement could stop. And once movement stopped, the situation could become something else. That was why no one asked. Ellen did not make demands. She did not explain herself. She did not step forward. She did not claim space. She simply remained in that condition. That was the condition under which protection worked. Protection did not begin as a request, and it was not maintained through gratitude. It was simply a state arranged to prevent problems from appearing. William also knew this condition. Protection was not given equally. Just because they moved together, the same silence did not create the same position. He knew the air before questions took shape. He knew the speed at which a gaze lingered. He knew the points where attention slowed, and the moments when suspicion could form. He knew when not to step ahead, when to remain, and when to reduce his own presence. Those conditions were not passed down in words. No one taught them. They were not organized as rules, but they were already finished. Once known, there were no alternatives left. That was why no one explained the rules. The moment this condition was named, it would gain a definition, and once defined, protection might no longer function. The moment it was organized, In words, it could become a judgment rather than a condition. So this protection was not explained. Instead, it was maintained without words, without confirmation, toward the side where problems did not appear. When Ellen moved forward, the movement did not look like leading, it looked organized. She did not increase her pace. She did not push the space open. She only moved to the position where she was already expected to be. At this time, people did not feel the need to stop the one in front. They did not ask for confirmation because she moved ahead, and they did not slow her down. Confirmation had already ended, and attention did not linger. The fact that attention did not linger made movement possible. Discomfort remained, but questions did not arrive. The discomfort existed like air, but it did not take the shape of words. That silence closed the space. A line was drawn, and that line was not explained. William remained behind. That position had not always been his place, but it created the least amount of trouble. Remaining behind did not mean stepping back. It was a position that delayed confirmation. In familiar passages, people did not look for long at the one behind. When the front was already organized, the back was quickly erased. When he was behind, attention passed over him without stopping. It did not linger. It did not accumulate. But it did not disappear completely. His silence kept the space open. By saying nothing, he occupied the place where words might arrive. If Ellen's silence created the line, William's silence held that line in place. One silence organized the space, the other endured, so that the organization would not collapse. Ellen left discomfort. William left stability. But that stability was not a state of rest. It had to be maintained continuously. The moment it stopped, confirmation could return. If someone asked for an explanation, William had to absorb it first, before the question left the mouth, before suspicion took its shape. He did not answer in advance. He blocked from behind. Nothing was said, but roles had already split. Who was blocking attention, and who was receiving it? It was the same movement, the same silence, the same choice. But who stood inside protection, and who made that protection possible, had already become different. That difference was not named. It was not organized. But it was already working. Nothing happened. At this time, an unobstructed passage did not look strange. The fact that it did not look strange allowed this method to remain. No one stopped them. No one treated it as a problem. The fact that it was not a problem did not become a problem. So, this method continued to appear valid. Validity was not confirmed in words, only repeated through action. The same movement was repeated. The same silence was maintained. Repetition did not create new meaning. Instead, it reduced suspicion. In familiar passages, attention did not linger for long. The fact that attention did not linger made the next passage easier. That silence was still effective. Effectiveness meant no explanation was needed. Ellen appeared safer. William became quieter. This change was not sudden. It had no stages. It accumulated gradually, and because it accumulated, it did not stand out. No one called this change an incident, because it was not an incident. No problem appeared. No questions arrived. Only the position shifted slightly. That difference was not measured. in numbers, nor explained by distance. But protection did not expand. Instead, it concentrated. Concentration did not look like a choice. It looked like a natural outcome. It gathered around Ellen and passed through William. Protection remained where it stayed. Passage flowed where it passed. No one organized this separation. Because it was not organized, it could be maintained. The moment it was organized, this state had to be explained. And the moment it was explained, this method could become dangerous. Explanation would fix this method, and fixation could invite questions. So, no one explained. So, nothing happened. But the fact that nothing happened was moving this relationship into a different state, without incidents, without words, little by little, toward a point that could not be reversed. No one declared a decision. At this time, a declaration was not necessary. Declarations fixed problems, and fixation could invite questions. So, no one attached words to the decision. Someone stood in front. Someone remained behind. But that arrangement was not called a choice. Who was first and who was behind was treated as if it did not matter. It was the same movement, the same silence, the same conditions. Because it looked that way, no one called this state a problem. As long as it was not a problem, there was no need to organize it. This method was maintained without explanation, and the fact that it was maintained began to function like justification. But as the same method continued, the weight did not remain even. Someone became safer. Someone else had to absorb more first. At first, the difference was not felt. Because it was not felt, it was not a problem. Absorption happened quietly, and because it was quiet, it did not draw attention. To delay the moment when words would be required, someone became even quieter. That quietness did not look like sacrifice. It was not organized as a role. It simply leaned toward the side that made the next passage possible. Familiar passage does not ask about weight, as passage repeats the fact that it is not asked, begins to feel natural, and becoming natural meant not looking back, where the conditions were still the same, when a different cost began to attach. No one said exactly so. No one stopped. No one declared again. This method continued to function, and because it functioned, it continued to be chosen. But how far can a familiar passage maintain the same weight? And when does the fact that the weight is no longer the same become a problem? If something stayed with you, it stays.